Let me start by saying this is not just my paranoia. It can't be. I've been considering posting this here for a couple of months now, but always decided not to because I figured I was just being the usual unsure first-time dad. But now, it's clearly not just my imagination. Like I said, this is my first child. My wife and I weren't even sure we wanted kids. We dated for 6 years before getting married, and decided to have a kid within a few months after that. After just 2 months of trying, she was pregnant. My wife handled the pregnancy and birth like a champ. I'd love to brag, but that's not what this is about. My son finally started to smile recently. After 6 months of waiting, it finally happened. But now, I'm starting to wish he never did. I know this sounds bad, but let me explain. The first few months of parenthood, for those who don't know, can be relatively simple. Assuming your child does not cry relentlessly, you may even forget it's there. My son was a quiet one. My wife and I were fortunate that he wasn't the colicky type or anything like that. A very quiet, happy, easily entertained child. We knew it would be some time before the big milestones, like first words, first steps, things like that. The only real milestone you get, usually within 2 to 3 months of being born, is your child's first smile. My wife and I waited for what felt like an eternity. When he hit the 2-month mark, we were forever on the edge of our seats. We both hated going to work, knowing that we could very well miss the first smile. Any day now, it would come. But it didn't. 3, 4, even 5 months passed, and my son never smiled. We tried everything. Funny faces, tickling, everything we could possibly think of. But the smiles never came. My son is 6 months old now, and has hit another milestone we were looking forward to. He has full control over his neck and head. Gone are the days of having to hold his head for him constantly. He looks around, observes everything. He's such a curious kid. He looks at everything like he's trying to figure out how it works, on the most detailed level possible. But his face is always a blank stare. Until a week ago. I'm going to stop for a moment and describe his room. I feel like a visual is important here. When you walk into his room, you're in the far right side of the room. There isn't even a corner there, it's just the door and the right wall. Along that right wall is his dresser and the door to his closet. The wall directly across from you when you enter the room is blank. We've left it empty as we've decided that someday soon we're going to start painting it with things he's interested in. The left wall is where the changing table is, and the back wall, the one with the doorway to his room, that's where his crib is. For the longest time, we never noticed any obscure behavior of his in any room of the house. But around 4 months, we noticed he would often glance over at the empty wall. This may not seem odd to you, but remember that there is nothing on the wall. No furniture or anything, just a solid white wall. And it wasn't just a glance so much as it was an entranced gaze. We had to really try to steal his attention away from it. Over the next couple of months, it got progressively worse. Even to the point where he was practically breaking his neck to look over at the wall. As soon as we would enter his room to put him to bed or change his diaper, his attention immediately snapped to face the wall. If we stood in the way of his view, he would start crying hysterically. It was like blocking his view of that wall was physically painful for him. We started to get creeped out, but just decided to overlook it. This was the time when I would consider coming here for advice, but would ultimately decide not to. But a week ago, he started smiling at the wall. And not just smiling, but laughing. He had done neither up to this point. But after a few seconds of looking at that wall, he begins grinning ear to ear and begins to giggle. This brings us up to last night, the final straw that made me come to you for advice. In the middle of the night, at 3:13 AM to be precise, we heard his giggle coming through the baby monitor. I rolled over to see what the camera was picking up. At first, I was ecstatic. My son was standing up in his crib. This was amazing. I was so proud. But it ended almost instantly when his giggle quickly grew into an all-out fit of laughter. And he was staring at the wall. Before last night, my son has never stood and never laughed like that. But this wall seems to bring him a level of joy I wish I could take credit for. I know this sounds crazy, but I can't help but think that he's seeing something we don't, or can't. I don't know what to do. Please, help me.